Son abandons father in retirement home unknown to him. His horse is watching. His reaction shocks everyone. Walter Thompson gripped his wooden cane tightly as he watched his son Michael carry a brown leather briefcase toward the stable. The E. 73-year-old man felt his chest tighten when he saw that cold, calculating look Michael had developed in recent years. "Dad, you need to sign these papers today," Michael said, adjusting the blue denim jacket he always wore when coming to the farm to handle business. "We can't put off this decision any longer." The gentle morning breeze carried the familiar scent of hay and damp earth from Clearwater Farm, nestled in the countryside of Kentucky. Golden, the chestnut horse Walter had raised since it was a foal, watched the scene through the fence slats, his ears perked as if sensing the tension in the air. "What papers are these, Michael?" Walter asked, though he already knew the answer he dreaded. "The documents for Maple Grove Retirement Home. It's a great place, Dad. You'll have medical care, physical therapy, people your own age to talk to." Michael opened the briefcase and pulled out several white sheets. "You can't stay alone out here in the middle of nowhere anymore." Walter's legs trembled, not from weakness but from a growing fury burning in his chest. Here was his only son, the boy he'd raised alone after his mother left when Michael was just 8, now trying to get rid of him like he was a burden. "And the farm?" he asked, his voice shaking. "I already have a buyer lined up. An agribusiness company that's willing to pay top dollar. With that money, I can make sure you get the best care at the home. I mean the retirement facility." Michael had let the word home slip, revealing his true feelings. Walter noticed, just as Golden did. The horse stepped closer to the fence, snorting softly the way he did when uneasy. The 15-acre property had been built by Walter's grandfather in 1952. 3 generations of the Thompson family had lived there, raising cattle and horses with love and dedication. But Michael had never cared for rural life. With a business degree, he worked at a consulting firm in Louisville and saw the farm only as an investment to cash in. "Michael, I was born on this land. Your grandfather, my father, is buried in the family plot behind the main house. How can you want to take me away from here? Dad, be realistic. You're 73, with diabetes and high blood pressure. You've fallen twice in the last few months. What if something worse happens? Who's going to help you?" The nearest neighbor lives 3 miles away. Michael was right about the falls. The first had been in the barn when Walter slipped in a mud puddle while feeding the animals. The second was inside the house, trying to reach a jar on the top kitchen shelf. He hadn't told his son about the third fall, just the week before. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now back to the story. Golden whickered softly as if wanting to join the conversation. The horse, his golden chestnut coat gleaming in the morning sun, had been Walter's constant companion for the last 15 years. More than a horse. He was family. "And Golden, what's going to happen to him?" Walter asked, pointing at the animal. Michael sighed impatiently. "Dad, he's just a horse. The buyer will decide what to do with the animals. They'll probably sell him to someone who can use him." "Just a horse?" Walter repeated the words as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Michael, this animal has saved my life 3 times. When I had that heart attack 5 years ago, he was the one who brought me back home after I fainted in the E pasture. When I got lost in the rain last year, he guided me through the dark. You don't understand a thing about loyalty. Loyalty doesn't pay the medical bills, Dad. You need to be practical." Walter looked into his son's eyes and saw a stranger. Where was the boy who used to cry when he saw a hurt calf? Where was the kid who spent hours brushing Golden and talking to him? The 45-year-old man standing before him seemed to have lost all his tenderness. "I won't sign," Walter said, pushing the papers back toward Michael. "Dad, don't be stubborn. This is for your own good." "My own good." "Michael, do you know the last thing your mother asked of me before she left?" Michael stopped organizing the papers and looked at his father, curious despite himself. "She asked me never to let you lose your connection to this land. She said one day you'd understand the value of roots, of belonging somewhere. I promised her I'd keep this farm for you. My mother abandoned me, Dad. She has no right to have a say in my life." She didn't abandon us, Michael. She left because she was sick. With a depression no one knew how to treat back then. She thought she was hurting you. This was news Michael had never heard before. His whole life he'd believed his mother had simply decided to leave the family. Walter had never told him the truth, protecting his wife's memory and sparing his son greater pain. "What are you saying?" Michael asked, his voice shifting. "Your mother, Jennifer, fought sadness for years. Back then, people didn't understand depression like they do today. She thought it was weakness, that she was harming our family. One day she left a letter saying she was going to seek treatment in the city and would come back when she was better." Michael sat on a nearby fence, the folder still in his hands but forgotten. Golden moved closer, resting his head over the fence as if trying to listen better. "She wrote letters, Michael, for years. She asked about you, wanted to know if you were growing up well, if you were happy. I answered everyone, sent her pictures of you. She said she was getting better, that she'd be home soon. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because you were angry, bitter. Every time I mentioned your mother, you lashed out. I thought it was better to wait until you were mature enough to understand." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of wind in the trees and the rustle of dry leaves on the ground. Michael was processing something that completely changed his understanding of his own past. "Where is she now?" he finally asked. Walter hesitated. This was the hardest part of the truth. "She passed away 10 years ago, Michael. She was in a hospital in Chicago. She sent one last letter, asking for forgiveness and saying she always loved you. I was going to tell you, but you were so distant, so caught up in your city life." Michael dropped the folder, the papers scattering in the wind. Golden snorted and shook his head, as if sensing the pain of the moment. "You lied to me all these years. I protected you, Michael, just like I'm trying to protect this place she loved so much." "Protected me? Dad, you made me hate my own mother. I grew up thinking she didn't care about us." The argument grew more heated. Michael stood and paced, his hands shaking with anger and confusion. Walter leaned harder on his cane, feeling the weight of decades of silence. "She loved you more than anything, son. That's why she left. She thought her presence was hurting you. And you thought hiding the truth was better. I did what I thought was right at the time. Maybe I was wrong, but my intention was always to protect you." Michael stopped in front of his father, his eyes red with contained emotion. "Do you know what this means, Dad? It means I lost the chance to say goodbye to her. I lost the chance to say I understood, that I forgave her. And now you want me to keep a farm because of a woman I barely even knew." "You did know her, Michael. For the first 8 years of your life, she was a wonderful mother. She sang you to sleep, taught you the names of the birds, showed you how to care for the animals. I don't remember any of that. Because you chose not to remember. The pain made you erase the good memories along with the bad ones." Golden moved away from the fence and trotted across the pasture, unsettled by the tension in the air. The animal had always been sensitive to human moods, especially Walter's. Over the years he had noticed the old farmer's growing sadness, spending long hours alone, talking to the animals as if they were his only family. "Dad, even if all that is true, it doesn't change the fact that you can't keep living here alone. You need care. I have Golden. He takes care of me." "A horse can't call an ambulance, Dad. He can't give you medicine on time. He can keep me company. He gives me a reason to wake up every morning. He reminds me I still have a purpose in this world." Michael let out a deep sigh. The conversation was going in directions he hadn't expected. He had come to the farm determined to settle his father's situation quickly, but now he was drowning in revelations about the past that changed his perspective on everything. "Dad, let's do this. You sign the papers, go to the retirement home for 3 months, just as a trial. If it doesn't work out, we'll talk about other options." "No." "Why not?" "Because I know how those places work, Michael. Once you go in, you never come out. And in 3 months, you'll have already sold the farm and washed your hands of all of this." The accusation was harsh, but Michael couldn't deny there was some truth to it. He really was eager to settle the inheritance and move on with his life in Louisville, where he had a girlfriend, a comfortable apartment, and a promising career. "Dad, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I'm trying to make sure you get proper care." "Then why don't you come live here? Bring your girlfriend." Start a family in this place? Because my life isn't here, Dad. My life is in the city. Your life is where you choose it to be, Michael. Just like your mother chose to leave because she thought it was better for us. The comparison hit Michael like a blow. For the first time, he saw the similarity between his actions and those of the mother he had hated for leaving. Both were running from responsibility. Both were abandoning someone they loved because they believed it was for the best. Golden returned to the fence, watching the two men with knowing eyes. The horse seemed to sense something important was happening in this conversation, something that would change all their fates. Dad, I need to think about all this. How long will you take to decide, Michael? Because I'm not eternal. And when I'm gone, you'll carry the guilt of abandoning me in my final years forever. Don't be dramatic, Dad. It's not drama, son. It's reality. Your mother left without a proper goodbye because she thought she was doing what was best. Now you want to do the same to me. The difference is she was sick. What's your excuse? Michael had no answer. He picked up the papers from the ground, tucked them back into his briefcase, and walked to the car without another word. Walter watched him go, his heart heavy with the feeling that he had lost his son for good. When the sound of the engine had completely faded away, Golden approached the fence where Walter still stood, motionless as a statue. The horse stretched out his neck and gently nudged the old farmer's shoulder with his muzzle, a tender gesture that drew the first tears from Walter's weary eyes. "So it's just you and me now, old friend," he said, stroking the animal's neck. "At least you won't abandon me." Golden whinnied softly, as if in agreement. The two remained there for long minutes, sharing a sorrow that seemed bigger than the world. Meanwhile, Michael drove down the dirt road leading to town, his mind swirling with everything he had discovered. For the first time in years, he began to question whether his decisions had truly been right. The revelation about his mother had shaken his certainties, making him see his father in a new light. In town, Michael stopped at a bar and ordered a beer, trying to process the conversation. His girlfriend Jessica called, asking about the outcome of his visit to the farm. "So, did your father sign the papers?" she asked anxiously. "No, and I found out some things that changed everything." "What do you mean?" Michael told her about his mother's revelations, the hidden letters, the real reason she had left. Jessica listened in silence, but her reaction wasn't what he had expected. "Michael, this doesn't change anything. Your father still needs professional care, and you can't sacrifice our lives over some old farm in the middle of nowhere." "Our lives, Jessica? I just found out my mother didn't abandon me like I thought, that she died alone in a hospital while I hated her. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It means your father lied to you for years. One more reason not to trust his judgment." The coldness of her response shocked him. He had expected understanding, support, to help him sort through the conflicting emotions he felt. Instead, Jessica saw only the practical side of things. "You don't understand, Jessica. My mother asked him to keep the farm for me. It was her last wish." "Michael, you're being emotional. Think rationally. Your father is 73, living alone. On an isolated farm, it's dangerous. And keeping that property is a constant expense you can't afford. We're engaged, Jessica. I thought you'd support me." "I am supporting you, love. That's why I'm trying to make you see you're making a decision based on guilt, not reason." Michael realized he was alone in this choice. Jessica, like so many in his urban generation, didn't understand the ties that bound a person to the land, to family tradition, to roots. Back at the farm, Walter spent the rest of the day tending to the animals with more care than usual. He knew these might be his last moments there. He fed the chickens, milked the 2 remaining cows, checked the horse's fence, and finally spent an hour brushing Golden. "You know something's happening, don't you, old friend?" he murmured to the horse as he ran the brush through his golden coat. "You've always been smart, smarter than a lot of folks I know." Golden stood quietly, enjoying the affection. It was a ritual Walter had kept for 15 years, every evening without fail. For the horse, it was a moment of peace and connection with the human he considered family. "If I have to leave, what'll happen to you?" Walter continued, speaking, more to himself than the animal. "Michael says you're just a horse, but you and I know you're so much more than that." That night, Walter struggled to sleep. He stayed on the porch, watching the stars and remembering the 50 years he had spent on that land. Every corner held a memory: the tree where Michael learned to climb, the creek where they fished together, the stable where dozens of horses had been born over the years. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. On the 4th day after Michael's visit, Walter woke up with a sharp pain in his chest. He tried to get up, but his legs wouldn't obey. This was different from the other times. This time he felt something truly serious was happening. He managed to drag himself to the porch and, with great effort, whistled for Golden. The horse, grazing in the field near the house, immediately lifted his head and trotted toward the sound. When he saw Walter collapsed on the porch, Golden began neighing loudly, an alarm that echoed across the property. The nearest neighbor, Old Bill, was checking his fence when he heard the noise. He'd known Golden for years and knew the horse only made that sound when something was wrong. He took his tractor and drove to Clearwater Farm, finding Walter unconscious on the porch and Golden pacing nervously around the house. Bill called an ambulance and phoned Michael. The son arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, finding his father in the ICU, hooked up to machines. The doctors explained it had been a heart attack, but Walter was stable. If it weren't for the quick response, your father wouldn't have made it, the doctor said. The neighbor mentioned it was the horse who raised the alarm. Interesting how animals sense these things. Michael stayed silent. He remembered his father's words about Golden saving his life before. For the first time, he began to understand their bond was truly special, not just the fantasy of a lonely old man. When Walter woke the next day, Michael was by his bedside. "How are you feeling, Dad?" "Tired, very tired." "The doctor said you were lucky. If it weren't for Golden..." "I told you he looks after me." Michael nodded, finally understanding. He spent the next 3 days in the hospital, watching his father battle illness, seeing his fragility but also his determination. Jessica visited only once, making her impatience clear. "Michael, you need to sort this out soon. You can't stay here indefinitely taking care of him." "He almost died, Jessica." "Exactly. All the more reason to arrange professional care. Did you see what happens when he's alone?" "He wasn't alone. He had Golden." "Michael, are you serious? You're putting your father's life in the hands of an animal?" The conversation was interrupted by a nurse entering to check Walter's vitals. Michael stepped into the hallway with Jessica. "I need to rethink some things, Jessica." "What do you mean?" "Maybe my father's right about some of this. Maybe I've been rushing." "Michael, you're letting emotion cloud your judgment. Your father had a heart attack because he lives alone without proper care. That should confirm your decision, not change it. Or maybe it confirms he needs care, just not necessarily in a home." "Not a home, a retirement facility. It's different." "It's the same, Jessica. You know it is." The argument grew heated. Other hospital visitors began staring. Jessica lowered her voice but kept it firm. "Michael, I need you to choose. Either handle this situation now or I'll rethink our relationship." "Are you giving me an ultimatum?" "I'm being realistic. I can't build a life with someone who can't make tough decisions." Michael stared at his girlfriend, trying to process her words. In a moment of family crisis, she was only thinking of her own interests. It was like seeing his own reflection in a mirror, recognizing the coldness he himself had shown toward his father. "Jessica, my father almost died. Could you show a little more sensitivity?" "Sensitivity won't solve practical problems, Michael. You need to be an adult and make the right decisions. And what if the right decision isn't what you expect? Then maybe we're not as compatible as we thought." Jessica left after that, leaving Michael alone in the hospital hallway. He returned to the room and found his father awake, watching him with attentive eyes. "She didn't like the idea of you reconsidering things, did she?" "Dad, don't eavesdrop on other people's conversations." "Son, when you're stuck in a hospital, you end up hearing a lot. And I heard enough to understand your girlfriend wants to get rid of me as much as you do." "It's not like that, Dad." "Michael, I've lived a long time. I know people. She doesn't truly love you. If she did, she'd care about what's important to you, not try to pull you away from it." Walter's words echoed in Michael's mind all night. The next day, when he was discharged, father and son returned together to the farm. Michael had decided to spend a few days there, helping with his recovery. Golden was waiting for them at the gate, whinnying softly when he saw Walter step out of the car. The horse approached slowly, nuzzling the old farmer's arm as if checking if he was all right. "Look how worried he was," Walter said, stroking the animal's neck. "Golden, my friend, I'm fine, thanks to you." Michael watched the scene with new eyes. There really was a connection between them, something beyond what he could rationally understand. Over the next few days, he witnessed firsthand how Golden cared for Walter, accompanying him in every task, staying close when he rested, growing restless when Walter wandered too far. "Dad, how did you train Golden to be so attentive?" "I didn't train him, Michael. Horses are naturally empathetic animals. They sense our moods, our health, our emotions. Golden has learned to know me over 15 years. He can tell when I'm well and when I'm not." "Is that possible?" "You grew up on a farm, son. How can you doubt an animal's intelligence?" Michael realized he had lost that connection to nature over years of city living. He had forgotten the wisdom he'd learned as a child, spending hours observing animals with youthful curiosity. For a week, Michael stayed at the farm, helping his father with heavier chores and observing the daily routine. He discovered Walter, kept an organized system, scheduled tasks, preventive care for the animals, and basic but efficient bookkeeping. "Dad, you're not as helpless as I thought." "I never said I was helpless, Michael. I said I was alone. There's a difference." The distinction was subtle but important. Walter maintained his independence and competence but longed for human companionship, someone to share his worries and joys. "What if I brought someone to live here with you, a nurse or a caregiver? A stranger in my home, Michael? I don't want to be treated like a patient. I want to be treated like a person." "Then what's the solution?" "The solution has always been the same, son. You coming home. My home is in Louisville, Dad. Your home is where your family is, and your family is here." Michael fell silent. During his days at the farm, he had felt a peace he hadn't known in years. The slower pace, the contact with nature, the simplicity of daily tasks had a calming effect on his mind, usually racing from urban life. "Dad, what if I came to spend our weekends here? It would be a commitment." "Michael, weekends aren't enough to maintain a rural property. You know that." "Then tell me what you want me to do." "I want you to choose, son. Choose between the life you built in the city and the life you could have here. But choose knowing this decision will determine what kind of man you are." "What kind of man? The kind who abandons family when things get tough, or the kind who faces his responsibilities?" The conversation was interrupted by a call from Jessica. She was furious because Michael hadn't returned to Louisville as promised. "Michael, you said it would only be 2 days. It's been a week." "My father is recovering from a heart attack, Jessica. And he'd recover better in a retirement home with qualified professionals. You're delaying the inevitable." "Maybe the inevitable isn't what we thought." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm considering other options." "What other options?" "Michael, you can't just drop your career, your apartment, your life to take care of a stubborn old man." The words "stubborn old man" echoed loudly over the phone. Walter, who was nearby, heard them clearly. His face tightened and Michael saw the hurt in his father's eyes. "Jessica, I have to go." "Michael, don't do anything foolish. Think with your head, not your heart." "Maybe it's time to think more with my heart, Jessica." Michael hung up and turned to his father. "Dad, she didn't mean—" "I know exactly what she meant, Michael. And now you know what kind of person she is." That night, Michael walked the property alone, trying to sort through his thoughts. The farm under the moonlight had a serene beauty he'd forgotten. Golden approached him in the pasture, letting Michael stroke him like they used to in childhood. "What do you think, Golden? What should I do?" The horse whinnied softly, as if truly considering the question. Michael smiled, remembering how he used to talk to the animals as a boy, believing they understood him. "You know he can't stay here alone forever, right? He's getting old and I can't always be here." Golden shook his head, a movement that could be interpreted as agreement or just shooing flies. But to Michael, in that moment, it seemed like a thoughtful reply. "Maybe the solution isn't taking him away. Maybe it's bringing help here." The next day, Michael began researching different options. He contacted home care agencies, rural assistance companies, even veterinarians who made regular visits. He discovered several alternatives to the retirement home he hadn't considered before. "Dad, what if we hired a nurse to come here twice a week, and a caretaker to help with the heavier chores? That costs money, Michael, a lot of money." "I can help with the costs, and we wouldn't have to sell the farm." Walter looked at his son in surprise. It was the first time Michael had offered financial help to keep the property instead of selling it. "You'd do that?" "Yes, Dad, but on one condition." "What?" "That you accept help when you need it. No stubbornness, no excessive pride. If the nurse says you need care, you accept it. And you? Will you keep coming here?" "I'll try to visit. More often. Maybe not every weekend, but at least twice a month." It wasn't the ideal solution Walter had hoped for, but it was far better than the retirement home. He agreed to the proposal, and Michael began making the necessary arrangements. The first nurse hired was Mrs. Anderson, a 55-year-old woman with experience in geriatric care. She would visit the farm 3 times a week, checking Walter's health, organizing his medications, and tending to minor dressings if needed. "Mr. Thompson, I'll need you to tell me about your routine," she said on her first visit. "Mealtimes, medications, physical activities. My routine revolves around the animals, Mrs. Anderson. I wake up at 5 in the morning for the first milking, then tend to the horses, check the fences." "You do all that by yourself?" "With Golden's help. He accompanies me in everything I do." Mrs. Anderson looked at the horse skeptically. Having grown up in the city, the idea of an animal being a useful companion seemed far-fetched to her. "Mr. Thompson, don't you think you're attributing human qualities to an animal?" "Mrs. Anderson, have you ever seen a horse save someone's life?" "No, sir." "Then you can't judge Golden's abilities." The nurse realized she had touched a nerve and changed the subject. Over the following weeks, however, she personally witnessed the horse's unusual behavior. Golden truly stayed by Walter's side like a guardian, growing restless whenever the old farmer wasn't feeling well. The handyman hired was Jim Wilson, a 40-year-old man who had lost his job at a neighboring farm. He would come twice a week to help with repairs, cleaning the stables, and tasks requiring more physical strength. "Mr. Thompson, you've got a well-kept property," Jim remarked during his first week. "You clearly know what you're doing." 50 years of experience, Jim. I learned from my father, who learned from his grandfather. And this horse here, he's real gentle. Golden's special. He's not just gentle, he's smart. Keeps an eye on me all the time." Jim was skeptical, just as Mrs. Anderson had been at first. But after a few weeks, he too began noticing the animal's unusual behavior. Golden would grow agitated whenever Walter was late for a task or seemed overly tired. "Mr. Thompson, this horse really is different," Jim admitted after a month. "It's like he understands everything that goes on here. I've always said so, Jim, but city folks don't believe me. They think it's all in my head." Michael visited the farm as promised, twice a month. During these visits, he saw firsthand how the new routine was working. Walter seemed livelier, more secure, knowing he had support when needed. Jessica, however, disapproved of the new arrangements. With each of Michael's visits to the farm, she grew more impatient. "Michael, you're spending a fortune to keep your father on a farm that produces nothing. It's irrational." "The farm does produce, Jessica. Not much, but it does, and it's not just about money." "Everything is about money, Michael. You're jeopardizing our financial future over sentimentality." "Our future? Jessica, do you contribute anything to these expenses?" "I contribute common sense. Someone in this relationship needs to stay grounded." The arguments about the farm became a constant source of tension between them. Michael began to realize Jessica wasn't willing to accept any solution other than selling the property and putting Walter in a home. "Michael, you've changed," she said after a particularly heated argument. "You used to be focused, ambitious. Now you're sentimental, indecisive." "Maybe I'm just finding my true self, Jessica." "And your true self is a failure who sacrifices the future for the past." The coldness of the question shocked Michael. He was seeing a side of Jessica he hadn't known, or had chosen to ignore. "Jessica, my father almost died alone. If it weren't for a horse, he would have died. Does that mean nothing to you? It means you should arrange proper professional care, not rely on luck. It wasn't luck, it was loyalty. It was love. Things you don't seem to understand. Michael, I'm trying to protect our relationship, but if you keep making irrational decisions, I'll have to reconsider our situation. Maybe it is. Time we reconsider, Jessica. The relationship was clearly in crisis. Michael found himself torn between two completely different worldviews, Jessica's pragmatic and ambitious one, and Walter's sentimental and traditional one. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like the video and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us creators just starting out. Now back to the story. During a visit to the farm, Michael witnessed a scene that would completely change his perspective. Walter had gone out to check a fence in the far pasture and took longer than usual to return. Golden, who usually accompanied him, had stayed near the house because of a small injury on his hoof. When the sun began to set and Walter still hadn't returned, Golden grew extremely agitated. The horse neighed loudly, paced back and forth, looked toward the pasture, then back at Michael, as if trying to communicate something. "What's wrong, Golden? Where's Grandpa?" Michael caught himself using the childhood nickname he'd once called his father in front of the animals. Golden trotted toward the pasture, stopped, looked back at Michael, and neighed again. The behavior was clearly a plea for help. "You want me to go look for him?" The horse nodded vigorously. Michael decided to trust the animal's instinct and followed Golden's lead. After 15 minutes of walking, he found Walter on the ground, near a fence, conscious but unable to get up. "Dad, what happened?" "Tripped on a rock and twisted my ankle. Tried to get back, but the pain was too much." Michael helped his father up and supported him on the walk back. As they neared the house, Golden waited for them, neighing softly, as if relieved. "Dad, how did Golden know you were in trouble?" "I told you, he looks after me, Michael. We've spent so much time together that he senses when something's wrong even from a distance." "That's impossible. You just saw it with your own eyes, son. How can you say it's impossible?" Michael had no answer. He'd personally witnessed something that defied rational explanation, yet was undeniably real. That night, as he tended to his father's injured ankle, Michael reflected on everything he'd seen. The bond between Walter and Golden was real, deep and vital to the old farmer's safety. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What is it, son?" "Jessica wants me to break off our engagement if I don't resolve your situation soon." "And what will you do?" "I don't know. I love her, Dad. But I love you too. And I'm starting to realize, maybe I can't have both." "Michael, let me tell you something about true love. When I married your mother, my father didn't approve. He thought she was too delicate for farm life, said I'd have to choose between her and this land." "What did you do?" "I chose your mother. I was ready to sell everything and move to the city if I had to. Know why?" "Why?" "Because she never asked me to. She accepted our life here, embraced our traditions, learned to love this land as much as I did. True love doesn't ask you to give up who you are. But Jessica isn't asking me to give up who I am. She's asking me to be practical. Son, if you abandon me to a retirement home and sell this farm, you won't be practical. That's being cowardly. And Jessica knows it. Why do you say that? Because she doesn't want a strong man by her side. She wants a man she can control. And a man who abandons his father is a man who can be controlled by the fear of abandonment." Walter Thompson's words hit Michael like a revelation. He began to see his relationship with Jessica in a new light, noticing patterns of manipulation he had ignored. "Dad, what if I bring Jessica here, so she can understand our life better, see why this farm matters?" "You can try, son, but be ready to find out who she really is." The following week, Michael invited Jessica to spend a weekend at the farm. She reluctantly agreed, making it clear it was to settle this situation once and for all. "Michael, I hope you use this weekend to show your girlfriend how hard it is to maintain a rural property," she said during the trip. "Maybe then she'll understand why selling is better." "Actually, Jessica, I want to show you why it's worth keeping. Michael, you know I don't like rural activities. I don't like dirt, animals, primitive living." "Primitive?" Jessica, my dad has solar power, high-speed internet, all the modern comforts. But there's no mall, restaurants, movie theaters, cultural life. There are other things: peace, fresh air, a connection to nature. Things I don't care about. The conversation was off to a bad start, but Michael was determined to try. When they arrived at the farm, Walter greeted them warmly, acting as a gracious host despite the tension. "Jessica, welcome to our home," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Michael's told me a lot about you. I hope it was all good. Mostly concerns about your health and safety." Her reply was polite but cold. Walter immediately sensed Jessica wasn't there with an open mind, just fulfilling an obligation. At lunch, Jessica made several remarks that revealed her urban, prejudiced view of rural life. "Mr. Thompson, don't you feel isolated here? No close neighbors, no quick access to hospitals." "I have neighbors, Jessica. Maybe not next door, but I do. And the hospital is just half an hour away." "Half an hour could be too long in an emergency. It could, but it could also be too long in a congested city. Ever been stuck in traffic when you needed to get somewhere fast?" Jessica didn't like his response, which showed how easily her arguments could be countered. After lunch, Michael suggested a walk around the property. Jessica agreed, but clearly wasn't happy. She wore shoes unfit for rural terrain and clothes that screamed she was out of her element. "Michael, this place is so dusty. I can't get my clothes dirty." "Jessica, it's a farm. A little dust is normal. Maybe for you, not for me." Golden approached the group, curious about the visitor. When he tried to get closer to Jessica, she recoiled in clear disgust. "Michael, keep that horse away from me. I'm scared of big animals." "Jessica, Golden is gentle. You can touch him, no problem." "I don't want to. Animals are dirty. They carry diseases." Michael was embarrassed by his girlfriend's reaction. Walter watched silently, but his expression said everything about what he thought of Jessica's attitude. "Jessica, Golden has saved my dad's life more than once. He's a special animal." "Michael, you're exaggerating. Horses don't save people's lives. That's fantasy." "It's not fantasy. I've seen him alert my dad when he was in danger." "You saw what you wanted to see, Michael." "You're romanticizing it." Walter couldn't hold back. "Miss, with all due respect, you're talking about things you don't understand." "Mr. Thompson, I have a college degree. I know the difference between facts and imagination. A college degree doesn't teach you about animal intuition, about the bonds between different species. That's something you learn by living, by observing, by respecting. Mr. Thompson, we need to be realistic. You're elderly, you live alone, you depend on an animal to feel safe. That's not healthy." The conversation was getting tense. Michael tried to intervene, but Jessica pressed on. "The best thing would be for you to live somewhere with human company. Activities suited to your age, medical care available when needed." "You're talking about a nursing home, young lady. Why not just say the word?" "A retirement home, Mr. Thompson. It's different. It's the same thing with a fancy name. And I've already told Michael I'm not going anywhere." "But it's not just your decision, Mr. Thompson. Michael also has the right to live his life without constant worry." "Michael has always had the right to live his life. I never asked him to sacrifice anything for me." "But you're asking. Now you're asking him to keep up a costly, unproductive farm out of sentimentality." "Sentimentality? Young lady, this land fed 3 generations of our family. Horses were born and raised here that are now spread all over this country. This is where we practice sustainable farming that protects the land. Is that sentimentality?" Jessica had no answer for Walter's arguments, so she changed tactics. "Mr. Thompson, what happens if you have another health scare? Will Michael have to drop everything to take care of you?" "If I have another health scare, Jessica, I'll face it here, on my land, like my father did, like my grandfather did. And when my time comes, at least I'll go knowing I lived with dignity." "That's selfish, Mr. Thompson. You're only thinking of yourself." The accusation was the last straw. Walter stood leaning on his cane and glared at Jessica with burning indignation. "Selfish, young lady. I raised my son alone after his mother passed. I worked sun up to sundown to give him an education, clothes, food, values. I never denied him anything within my power. And now when I'm old and tired, you want to shove me aside because I'm inconvenient. Who's being selfish here?" The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Jessica had crossed a line she shouldn't have, and everyone knew it. "Mr. Thompson, I didn't mean—" "Oh, you meant it. You meant to belittle me, to make me feel guilty for loving my land and my animals. You meant to convince me I'm a burden to my son." Michael was mortified. He saw his father hurting and his girlfriend being needlessly cruel. "Jessica, I think we should stop here." "Michael, I was just being realistic." "No, you were being heartless." Jessica realized she'd gone too far, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "Michael, someone had to tell the truth. You've been avoiding a hard conversation." "The truth, Jessica, is that you have no empathy. You can't understand that some things matter more than comfort and convenience." "Michael, you're being unfair. I'm trying to protect our future." "Our future, Jessica? What future can we have if you don't accept my family, my history, my values?" That night, Jessica insisted on staying at a hotel in town instead of the farm. Michael went with her, and they had the most serious fight of their relationship. "Michael, you saw how hostile your father was. I was only trying to help." "Jessica, you called my father selfish. How did you expect him to react?" "I told the truth. He's being selfish by refusing a rational solution." The problem, Jessica, is you can't see that not everything in life can be solved rationally. Sometimes the heart needs a say. The heart doesn't pay bills, Michael. The heart doesn't solve practical problems. But the heart gives meaning to life, Jessica. Without it, we're just machines producing and consuming. Jessica realized she was losing the argument and changed tactics. "Michael, if you truly love me, you'll choose our relationship. You'll make the hard but necessary decision. And if you truly loved me, Jessica, you'd try to understand why this decision is so difficult for me." "I do understand. But understanding doesn't mean accepting an irrational choice." "Irrational to whom?" "To you, who can't see value in anything that isn't monetizable." The argument dragged on late into the night without resolution. The next morning, Jessica issued a final ultimatum. "Michael, I'm going back to Louisville. You have 1 week to decide. Either handle your father's situation like an adult, or our relationship is over." "Jessica, you're forcing me to choose between you and my father." "I'm forcing you to grow up, Michael, to make responsible adult decisions." And what if my adult decision isn't the one you expect? Then you'll have made the wrong choice." Jessica left that morning, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts and a father hurt by how he'd been treated. "Dad, I'm sorry for Jessica's attitude. She shouldn't have spoken to you like that." "Michael, don't apologize for her. Apologize for taking so long to see who she really is." "I love her, Dad." "Son, what you feel for Jessica might be many things, but it's not love. Love is acceptance, understanding, a willingness to grow together. What you two have is mutual convenience." "How can you be so sure?" "Not because I experienced real love with your mother, Michael. I know the difference." Michael spent the rest of the weekend at the farm, trying to sort through his emotions. During a solitary walk through the pastures, Golden approached him, as he always did when sensing someone's sadness. "Golden, do you think I should choose my dad or my girlfriend?" The horse looked at him with those big, expressive eyes, as if truly considering the question. "It's a stupid question, isn't it? Of course the answer is my dad. He'd never abandon me, never give me ultimatums." Golden shook his head, and Michael smiled for the first time in days. "You agree with me, don't you? It's time." "I really grow up." On Monday, Michael returned to Louisville with a decision made. But before talking to Jessica, he made some important calls. First call to his boss resigning from the consulting firm. Second call to a rural architecture firm applying for a project manager position. Third call to his landlord informing him he wouldn't renew the lease. Fourth call to Jessica arranging a meeting. They met at a cafe in downtown Louisville, the same place where they'd met 2 years earlier. Jessica arrived smiling, believing Michael had accepted her ultimatum. "Michael, I knew you'd make the right choice. Did you already arrange the retirement home paperwork?" "Jessica, I made a choice, but I don't think it's the one you expected." Her smile vanished. "What do you mean?" "I quit my job. I'm going to work for a rural architecture firm, and I'm moving to the farm." Jessica stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. "Michael, This is a joke, right? It's not a joke, Jessica. It's the most serious decision I've ever made. Michael, you can't throw your career away over a stubborn old man. I'm not throwing my career away, I'm changing direction. And my dad isn't a stubborn old man. He's a wise man who taught me values I'd forgotten. Values? Michael, values don't pay bills. Jessica, all you think about is money. Have you ever wondered if there's something more important in life? Of course there are important things. That's why I'm trying to protect you from a stupid decision. You're not protecting me, Jessica. You're trying to control me. Michael, that's absurd. I love you. No, Jessica. You love the version of me you created in your head, the ambitious Michael focused only on money and status. But I'm not that person anymore. Then who are you? I'm Walter Thompson's son. I'm Robert Thompson's grandson. I'm part of a lineage of men who work the land with their own hands, and no family is more important than any career. Jessica played her last card. Michael, if you do this, our relationship is over. I know, Jessica, and maybe that's best for both of us. You'll regret this, Michael. When you're old and poor on that farm, you'll remember the future you threw away. And you, Jessica, when you're rich and alone in the city, maybe you'll remember the man who could have taught you about real love. Michael stood up, left money on the table for the coffee, and said goodbye to Jessica forever. There were no tears, no drama, just the quiet certainty of someone making the right choice. A week later, Michael was back at Clearwater Farm, this time to stay. He brought only his clothes and a few books. Everything else from his city life was left behind. Son, are you sure about this? Walter asked when Michael announced his final decision. I am, Dad. For the first time in years, I'm certain about something. And Jessica? Jessica chose money. I chose family. Walter hugged his son with tears in his eyes. Golden approached them as if understanding something important had happened. Golden, my friend, it seems our family has grown, Walter said, stroking the horse's neck. Now there are 3 of us looking out for each other. Michael began working at the rural architecture firm, developing sustainability projects for properties like his family's. It was work that combined his technical knowledge with his newfound passion for country life. During the week, he worked in an office in the nearby town. On weekends and evenings, he helped Walter with the farm. Gradually, he took on more responsibilities, allowing his father to retire slowly from the heavier tasks. Mrs. Anderson and Jim Wilson continued to help, but with Michael there, the farm's dynamic changed. There was more energy, more projects, more hope for the future. Michael, you've brought new life to this farm, Mrs. Anderson remarked after a few months. Your father is more excited than I've ever seen him. He just needed company, Mrs. Anderson, someone to share his worries and plans with. And you? Don't you miss city life? Sometimes I miss a few comforts, but I don't miss the loneliness, the stress, the feeling of always chasing something that never came. Michael had found a peace in rural life he never knew existed. Waking to birdsong, working with his hands, having time to watch plants grow and animals behave, it all gave him a sense of fulfillment he'd never experienced in the city. Golden, in turn, seemed rejuvenated by Michael's arrival. The horse now had 2 humans to care for, and he took that responsibility seriously. He remained especially attentive to Walter, but also developed a particular fondness for Michael. Dad, Golden follows me everywhere now, Michael commented one afternoon. He's adopting you, son. To him, you're now part of the herd he needs to protect. Herd? To a horse, family is a herd, and Golden has always seen himself as this herd's guardian. Michael observed the animal's behavior with new eyes. Indeed, Golden displayed a protective instinct that went beyond ordinary training. He seemed to understand the routines, the moods, the potential dangers surrounding his favorite humans. 6 months after his permanent move to the farm, Michael received an unexpected call. It was Jessica. Michael, can we talk? Of course. Jessica, how are you? Good, I mean professionally good. I got a promotion at the company. I'm making really good money now. I'm happy for you. Michael, I've been thinking about us. Maybe I was too harsh, too inflexible. Jessica, what are you saying? I'm saying maybe we could try again. Maybe I can accept your choices, as long as you're willing to accept some changes too. What? Kind of changes. Well, you could keep the farm but also have a place in the city. We could spend the week in Louisville and weekends at the ranch. It would be a compromise. Michael fell silent for a moment, processing the offer. And my father. Your father could come with us to the city during the week, or stay at the farm with caregivers. It would be a middle ground. Jessica, you still don't get it. Get what? That it's not about location. It's about values, about priorities, about what really matters in life. Michael, I've changed. I'm willing to accept your rural life. You haven't changed, Jessica. You just realized you might have lost a good deal and are trying to renegotiate the terms. That's not true. It is. You still see everything as a business transaction, even our relationship. Michael, please, can we talk in person? Can I come to the farm? No, Jessica. You've already shown what you think of our life here. There's nothing left to discuss. Michael, you'll regret this. You're throwing away a woman who loves you. Jessica, if you really loved me, you would have supported my decision from the start. You would have tried to understand my reasons instead of giving me ultimatums. Michael, Jessica, I wish you all the best. But our story is over. For good. Michael hung up the phone and sat on the porch for a while, reflecting on the conversation. He didn't feel sadness or regret, only confirmation that he'd made the right choice. Walter approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Was that Jessica? Yes, she wants to try reconciling. And you? I'm not interested, Dad. She's still the same person, just trying a different approach. Don't you miss her? I miss the idea I had of her, but not the real person she is. Father and son sat in silence, drinking coffee and watching Golden graze peacefully in the nearby field. It was a scene of domestic peace that Michael had learned to value above any urban luxury. A year after moving to the farm, Michael met Emily, a veterinarian who had been called to treat Golden for a mild case of colic. The difference between Emily and Jessica was clear from the first meeting. Your horse is beautiful, Emily said, examining Golden with professional care. How old is he? 15. He's been my father's companion for a long time. I can tell he shows a very strong bond with you both. It's rare to see such a deep connection between humans and horses. You believe in that kind of connection? Of course. I've worked with animals for 10 years. I've seen many cases of deep emotional bonds between different species. Animals are far more sensitive and empathetic than people realize. Michael was struck by how naturally Emily spoke about something Jessica had dismissed as fantasy. Golden has saved my father's life more than once, he shared. Doesn't surprise me. Horses are naturally protective of their herd, and, to Golden, you're his family. Over the following months, Emily returned to the farm several times to check on the animal's health. Gradually, a friendship developed between her and Michael, built on shared values and a mutual love for rural life. Emily, did you always want to be a veterinarian? Michael asked during one of her visits. Always. Even as a child, I knew I wanted to work with animals. My parents thought it was just a phase, that I'd choose something more lucrative. But you followed your dream. I did. And I've never regretted it for a single day. I love what I do. I feel like I'm making a difference in the world. Michael admired Emily's determination to pursue her calling, despite outside pressures. It was so different from Jessica's pragmatic mindset, which saw a career only as a way to make money. Walter Thompson also took an immediate liking to Emily. She showed genuine respect for the old farmer's traditional knowledge, asking about old animal care techniques and displaying real interest in the farm's history. Michael, this young woman is different, Walter remarked after one of Emily's visits. She understands the value of simple things. Dad, let's not jump ahead. We're just friends. Friends who look at each other the way you two do. Son, I may be old, but I'm not blind. Michael flushed, admitting to himself that he felt a growing attraction to Emily. But this time, he was determined not to rush, to truly know the person before getting emotionally involved. One weekend, Emily offered to help Michael vaccinate the horses. They worked side by side all morning, talking about veterinary techniques, the farm's history, and their dreams for the future. Michael, can I ask you something personal? Of course. What made you leave city life? You seem to have had professional success there. Michael told the whole story, discovering the truth about his mother, the pressure to send his father to a home, Jessica's ultimatum, and his decision to prioritize family over career. "Do you regret any of it?" Emily asked when he finished. "Not a thing. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm living by my true values." "And Jessica, don't you miss her?" "I miss the companionship sometimes, but I don't miss the person she was. We were incompatible on very fundamental levels." Emily nodded in understanding. "Relationships based only on physical attraction and convenience rarely last long-term. You need shared values, similar life goals." "You sound like you're speaking from experience." "I am. I've been with people who thought my profession was quirky or temporary, who expected me to grow up and choose something more conventional." "And what happened?" "I ended all those relationships. I realized that anyone who truly loves me has to accept my passion for animals, my busy life, my values." Michael felt a deep connection to Emily's words. She had gone through similar experiences, had made tough choices to stay true to herself. That afternoon, as they watched Golden play with the other horses in the pasture, Emily made an observation that touched Michael deeply. "See how happy he is. Golden knows you're all right, that the family is whole again. Animals sense these things." "How can you be so sure?" "By their body language, their behavior. When you first came to the farm last year, Golden showed constant anxiety. Now he's relaxed, playful. He knows he doesn't have to worry so much about protecting the family anymore." "Do you think he really understood my dad was alone?" "I'm certain of it. Horses are social animals, they live in groups. To Golden, seeing Walter alone was an abnormal, stressful situation. Your presence restored the natural balance." Michael was impressed by Emily's insight into animal behavior. She noticed things he hadn't, even though he lived on the farm. "Emily, would you like to join us for dinner tonight? My father is making his famous chicken stew." "I'd love to, but only if you let me help in the kitchen." Deal. Dinner was a wonderful experience. Emily fit right into the family's routine, helping prepare the meal, chatting about various topics, and showing genuine interest in Walter's stories about the early days of the farm. "Emily, you should come." "Here more often," Walter said during dessert. "It's good to have a woman in the house. These two men need some civilization." "Walter," Michael protested, embarrassed. "I'd love to visit more," Emily replied sincerely. "You have such a harmonious life here." "Harmonious?" "Emily, sometimes we have arguments, problems, difficulties." "Of course you do, every family does, but you work things out by talking with mutual respect. That's rare these days." So after dinner, Michael and Emily walked through the farm gardens under the moonlight. It was a clear night with millions of stars visible in the open country sky. "Michael, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I really admire your courage. Courage. To leave everything behind and start over. To choose love over convenience. It's not easy to go against social expectations. Sometimes I think I was just stubborn." "No, you were true to yourself. And that's a rare quality." They stopped near the stable, where Golden dozed standing up as horses do. The animal opened his eyes when he heard them approach, whinnying softly in greeting. "Hello, Golden," Emily said, extending her hand for him to sniff. "Taking good care of the family?" The horse let her stroke him, showing the trust he'd developed in her over the months. "He likes you," Michael observed. "Golden is very picky with new people. Animals sense intentions. He knows I genuinely care about his well-being and the family's." "Emily, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure. Are you involved with anyone?" Emily smiled, a smile Michael took as encouraging. "No. And you?" "Officially free. From Jessica." Officially and completely free. They looked at each other in silence for a moment, both recognizing something special was beginning between them. "Michael, maybe it's too soon to say this, but I really like you. I like the person you are, the values you have, the life you've chosen. Emily, I really like you too, more than I should considering how little time we've known each other. Then maybe we should get to know each other better. Slowly, no rush. I'd like that very much." Michael took Emily's hand, a simple gesture full of promise. Golden watched them, as if approving of the scene unfolding. In the months that followed, Michael and Emily built a strong relationship based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine love. Emily began spending weekends at the farm, not just as a visitor but as part of the family. Walter loved having her around. She treated him with the respect his age and experience deserved, but also as an equal, someone whose opinion mattered. "Emily, you've brought joy to this house," Walter said one afternoon. "It's been a long time since I've seen Michael so happy." "He makes me happy too, Walter. He's a special man." "He's a good boy. Just took him a while to find the right path. Sometimes we need to get lost to find ourselves." Wise words, my dear, wise words. A year and a half after they met, Michael decided he was ready for the next step. He proposed to Emily during a sunset at the farm, near the stable where Golden used to stay. "Emily, you've made me rediscover what true love is," he said, kneeling with a simple but beautiful ring. "Will you build a life with me here on this farm?" "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "I can't imagine a better place to raise a family." Golden, as if understanding the importance of the moment, approached the two and gently nudged Emily, with his muzzle a kind of animal approval. "I think we have Golden's blessing," laughed Michael. "And that's the most important blessing of all," Emily replied, hugging both Michael and the horse. The wedding took place right on the farm, a simple but touching ceremony. Walter served as Michael's best man, beaming with happiness to see his son find true love. Golden had a special role in the ceremony, adorned with colorful ribbons and walking slowly around the property as guests admired his majesty. "My dear friends," Walter said during his speech, "today we celebrate not just the union of Michael and Emily, but also proof that true love exists and always triumphs over social conventions and material pressures." Emily moved to the farm permanently after the wedding, setting up a veterinary practice near the property. The combination of her professional skills and Walter's traditional knowledge created perfect synergy in caring for the animals. 2 years after the wedding, Emily gave birth to a baby girl, Emma Grace, who from her earliest days showed a special love for the farm animals. Golden, now 18, naturally took on the role of the child's protector, carefully following her as she crawled around the yard. "Look how Golden watches over Emma Grace," Michael remarked one afternoon. "It's like he knows she's special." "Horses are naturally protective of young ones," Emily explained, "but with Golden it's different. He's truly developed a parental instinct with her. Like my father always said, Golden is more than a horse, he's family." Walter, now a grandfather, had found a new purpose in life. He spent hours telling Emma Grace stories about the farm, the horses, and family traditions she should know. "Grandpa, tell me Golden's story again," the little girl would ask, even before turning 2. "Oh, my sweet granddaughter, that's the most beautiful story of all. Once upon a time there was a very special horse who saved Grandpa's life many times." And Walter would tell for the 100th time how Golden had become the family's guardian, how the animal's loyalty had been key to keeping everyone together. During one of these storytelling afternoons, Emma Grace made an observation that surprised everyone. "Grandpa, is Golden getting tired?" Walter looked at his granddaughter, puzzled. "Why do you say that, sweetheart?" "He doesn't run like he used to, and he sleeps more now." It was true. Golden, now 18, was beginning to show signs of age. He was still healthy, but clearly slower, more contemplative. "My granddaughter is very observant," Walter said. "Golden is getting old, just like Grandpa, but he still has so much love to give." Emily, with her veterinary experience, carefully monitored Golden's health. The horse had no serious issues, just the natural wear of age. "Michael, we need to start preparing Emma Grace for the fact that Golden won't be here forever," Emily said in a private conversation. "She's too young to understand. That's exactly why we need to prepare her gradually. Children should learn about life cycles naturally, without trauma." Michael knew Emily was right, but the thought of losing Golden was painful for him too. The horse had been a constant presence in his life, a symbol of the wisdom and loyalty he had learned to cherish. On an autumn morning 2 years later, Walter woke with an odd feeling. Golden wasn't in his usual spot near the barn. Worried, the old farmer went searching for the animal and found him lying peacefully beneath his favorite tree in the pasture. Golden, my old friend. What are you doing there? Walter asked, approaching carefully. The horse lifted his head and looked at him with calm eyes as if at peace. When Walter tried to get him to stand, Golden made an effort, but it was clear something was different. Walter called Michael and Emily, who came right away. Emily examined Golden carefully, her expression growing more serious by the minute. "What is it, Emily?" Michael asked, though he already feared the answer. "He's preparing to leave us," she said softly. "There's nothing specific, just his body growing tired after a long, full life." "Isn't there anything we can do?" "We can stay with him. Give him love and comfort. Let him know how much he's loved." Walter sat on the ground beside Golden, stroking the animal's neck as he had done thousands of times over 18 years. "My faithful friend, you were more than a horse to us. You were a protector, a companion, part of the family." Michael sat on the other side, also petting Golden. Emily brought Emma Grace, who, despite her young age, seemed to understand something special was happening. "Is Golden tired?" the little girl asked with childlike innocence. "Yes, sweetheart," Walter replied. "He's very tired after a whole lifetime of taking care of us." "Is he going to sleep forever?" "Yes, my dear. But our memories of him will stay with us always." The family stayed with Golden all day, taking turns offering gentle touches and loving words. The horse seemed calm, at peace, as if he knew he had fulfilled his purpose on earth. As the sun began to set, Golden closed his eyes for the last time, surrounded by the family he had protected and loved for so many years. His passing was gentle, without suffering, like a warrior finally able to rest. Walter wept openly, unashamed, of the tears streaming down his wrinkled face. Michael held his father, also moved by the loss of the companion who had meant so much to their lives. "Dad, Golden had a good life. He was loved and honored till the very end." "I know, son. But it still hurts. He was special. More than special, Dad. He was family." They buried Golden beneath the tree where he had chosen to pass, marking the spot with a stone engraved with his name and the dates of his birth and death. Emma. Grace, despite her young age, placed flowers on the grave in a gesture that touched everyone. In the days that followed, the farm felt strangely quiet without Golden's presence. Everyone missed him in their own way. Walter, now 79, felt the absence of his companion most deeply. Golden had been his shadow for nearly 2 decades, and now the loneliness felt heavier. "Michael, I think my time is coming too," he said one melancholy afternoon. "Dad, don't talk like that. You're in good health." "Physically, yes. But my heart is tired, son. I've lost so many people and animals I loved. Sometimes I feel I've fulfilled my purpose here." "Your purpose isn't over yet, Dad. Emma Grace needs to grow up hearing your stories, learning about our family." "You're right. The little one will still need her grandpa for a while longer." Michael realized his father was going through a natural process of grief and acceptance of his own mortality. Golden had been his last strong tie to the past, and his passing marked the end of an era. Emily, with her sensitivity, suggested a way to honor Golden's memory that might help Walter cope with the loss. "Say, Walter, how about we write a book about Golden, about all the stories you've told over the years?" "A book? Emily, I don't know how to write books." "You don't have to write it. You can tell the stories, and I'll write them down. It would be a way to preserve his memory and all the lessons he taught us." The idea excited Walter in a way that surprised the family. He began recalling and narrating episodes from his life with Golden, from the day the horse arrived at the farm as a foal to their final moments under the tree. "Emily, did you know Golden was born on a stormy night? His mother had a difficult birth, and I spent the whole night helping." And so, for months, Walter relived decades of memories, turning pain into celebration and loss into legacy. The book, Golden, The Guardian of Clearwater Farm, was published a year later, becoming a local success and inspiring others to cherish their bonds with animals. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. One afternoon, as Walter read passages from the book to Emma Grace in the backyard, she pointed toward the farm gate. "Grandpa, there's a horse over there." Walter looked and saw a light brown horse, standing outside the fence watching them curiously. The animal seemed young, healthy, but also lost. "Michael, Emily, come see this." The family gathered to observe the visiting horse. It showed no fear, only curiosity, as if assessing whether this was a safe place. "Where did he come from?" Michael asked. "I have no idea," Emily replied, stepping forward cautiously. "No markings, doesn't seem hurt. Maybe he wandered off from a neighboring farm." But when Emily reached out, the horse approached confidently, allowing affection as if it already knew the family. "How strange," she murmured. "He acts like he knows he can trust us." Emma Grace, just 4 years old, ran to the fence. "Can I give him a carrot, Grandpa?" "Of course, sweetheart. But go slow so you don't startle him." To everyone's surprise, the horse took the carrot from the little girl gently, nuzzling her small hand with tenderness. "He's as gentle as Golden was," Emma Grace exclaimed. Walter watched the scene with growing emotion. There was something familiar in the animal's demeanor, a kindness that reminded him of his old friend. "Michael, I think this horse is here to stay." "Dad, first we need to find out if he has an owner. I'll call the neighbors, see if anyone's missing a horse out," but the calls revealed no owner. No one in the area had lost a horse. It was as if the animal had simply appeared, choosing Clearwater Farm as its new home. "Emily, what do you think?" Michael asked. "I think this horse chose us. Animals have instincts we don't fully understand. Maybe he sensed this was a good place to live." Walter walked up to the fence and looked straight into the horse's eyes. "You came to take Golden's place, didn't you?" he murmured. "You came to carry on his work." The horse lowered its head as if agreeing. "What should we name him?" Emma Grace asked. "How about Hope?" Emily suggested. "He arrived bringing new hope to our family." "Hope," Walter repeated, testing the name. "Yes, I think that fits." And so Hope became the new guardian of Clearwater Farm. Like Golden before him, the horse quickly developed a special bond with the family, showing the same protective instinct his predecessor had. Walter, revitalized by the arrival of his new companion, regained energy for his daily tasks. It was as if Hope had brought back some of the joy lost when Golden passed. "Michael, do you believe in signs?" Walter asked one afternoon. "What do you mean, Dad?" "I think Golden sent Hope to us, so I wouldn't be alone, so the family would stay whole." Michael smiled, touched by his father's simple faith. "If you believe it, Dad, then it's true." "I do believe it, son. I believe true love transcends physical existence, and that Golden, even though he's no longer here, still watches over us." Emma Grace, who had grown up hearing stories about Golden, accepted Hope as a natural continuation of the family tradition. To her, having a special horse care for the family was as natural as having a grandfather, father, and mother. "Will Hope protect me like Golden protected Grandpa?" she asked. "Yes, sweetheart," Walter replied. "And when you grow up, you'll teach your children to care for him, just like I taught your father." 3 years had passed since Hope's arrival. The farm thrived under the combined care of 3 generations of the Thompson family. Michael had expanded sustainability projects, Emily had established a leading center for rural veterinary medicine, and Walter remained the guardian of traditional wisdom. Emma Grace, now 7, showed the same love for animals that defined the family. She spent hours talking to Hope, who followed her around the property with the same devotion Golden had shown Walter. "Daddy, Hope understands when I talk to him," she said one afternoon. "How do you know that, sweetheart?" "Because he answers. Not with words, but with looks, with movements, just like Grandpa said about Golden." Michael realized his daughter had inherited the family's gift for communicating with animals. It was a talent passed down through generations, keeping alive the tradition of respect and connection with nature. On a special evening, 5 years after Golden's passing, the family gathered near their old friend's grave to honor his memory. They had invited neighbors and friends who had known Golden over the years. "My friends," said Walter, now 84, but still sharp and strong, "we're here to remember a friend who taught us about loyalty, unconditional love, and family protection." Hope stood close to the group, as if understanding the solemnity of the moment. Golden showed us that family isn't just defined by blood, but by choices of love and mutual devotion. He chose our family, and we chose him. Michael stepped closer. to his father and continued. Dad was right when he said Golden was more than a horse. He was family. And today, with Hope here with us, we know this tradition of love and protection will continue for generations to come. Emily held Emma Grace, who placed fresh flowers on Golden's grave. "Thank you for everything, Golden," the girl said solemnly, "for taking care of Grandpa, for teaching Hope to take care of me." Walter was moved by his granddaughter's words. At 84, he had lived to see his family grow, thrive, and keep alive the values he held most dear. "Michael, do you remember when you wanted to put me in a retirement home?" Walter asked that night as they gazed at the stars from the porch. "I do, Dad, and I'm ashamed of that time." "Don't be, son. You were lost, influenced by people who didn't understand our values. What matters is you found your way back." "It was Golden who helped me, Dad. He showed me what really matters. And Hope will teach the same lesson to Emma Grace, and she'll teach it to her children. That's how traditions live on." Michael nodded, understanding he was part of something greater than himself, a link in a chain of love, tradition, and wisdom stretching from the past into the future. Hope approached the porch as he did every night, for one last check on the family before resting. Walter reached out and stroked the animal's neck. "Thank you for continuing to take care of us, my friend," he whispered. "Golden chose his replacement well." That night, Michael reflected on the extraordinary journey he had lived, from nearly losing his father to a retirement home to building a strong, happy family at the farm, all because a special horse had shown him the path to unconditional love. And as Hope stood silent watch over Clearwater Farm, just as Golden had done for so many years, the tradition of protection and love continued, promising to endure for many generations to come. Because some connections transcend human understanding, creating bonds that neither time nor distance can break. And in the simplicity of rural life, where each day brings lessons in humility and gratitude, true wealth is measured not in material possessions, but in the depth of family ties and the wisdom passed from heart to heart. The end of the story. Now tell us in the comments, do you believe animals have this special ability to teach us about love and loyalty? Do you know a similar story? Share your experiences. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming tales.